And we're back with an all-new episode of News You Can Use, a podcast by Pennsylvania Stands Up about Pennsylvania, people, power, and politics. I'm your host, Edwin, and I go by he, they pronouns, and I'm Director of Narrative Strategy here at PA Stands Up.
And I'm Hannah, my pronouns are she, they, and I'm the digital organizer here at PA Stands Up.
Today we're talking about the state budget. You might think that the budget's boring, I know, but if you care about housing, schools, or your roads not swallowing your car whole, stick with us.
And with the budget stuck in limbo right now, we wanted to break down what's going on and how this all connects to power and to people like you.
So let's back up and talk about how this whole thing is supposed to work. Pennsylvania's fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. Around August, the Office of the Budget sends out guidelines that basically tells the state agencies, hey, it's time to start working on next year's budget.
Then in the fall, those agencies turn in their 5-year budget requests. The governor's team goes through everything from October through January, looking at how much money's coming in and what the priorities are, and trying to build a spending plan that is balanced, as it has to be under state law. Once the governor finalizes that plan, it gets officially sent to the legislature, usually in early February, so the House and Senate can start arguing over priorities as they do. By April and May, they're drafting bills like the General Appropriations Act, the Education Code, Tax Code, Fiscal Code. There's a lot going on.
Yes, lawmakers try to get everything passed by June 30th, but Pennsylvania is kind of infamous for blowing past that deadline. State employees still get paid, but other folks, thinking about school districts, nonprofits, the local governments, start feeling the pinch real fast. Payments get delayed, programs stall out, and it's chaos.
At the end of it is a budget that's supposed to actually work for the people, allegedly.
Allegedly. Right now, as we're recording this, we're still more than a month into the new fiscal year, and there's still no budget. That means counties and school districts are still starting to feel the impact. Money's stuck and things that people count on are hanging in the balance.
The proposed budget this year includes some big stuff. Tax relief for homeowners, money for public schools, help for first-time home buyers, healthcare, transit, energy, and unfortunately, more funding for law enforcement.
Budgets are about priorities. Where are we putting our resources and where are we not? Right now, Republicans are crying about overspending, but what they really mean is we don't really want to tax the rich.
If you haven't already, check out the All Eyes on Yas Coalition's Pathway to Prosperity platform at alleyesonyas.com. We break all of this down and name names like billionaire, right-wing megadonor, and public school nemesis, Jeffrey Yass. He's part of a whole network trying to dismantle education in Pennsylvania, and he's got a lot of political influence. Pennsylvania's richest man has donated to 1 out of every 3 elected officials in Pennsylvania. Billionaires could be taxed just a little bit, and it would make a massive difference for the people of Pennsylvania.
And speaking of budgets and priorities, let's talk about housing. One of the big sticking points right now is the PA Home Preservation Program. But let's talk about what that really is. The PA Home Preservation Program provides state funding to help homeowners with low to moderate incomes, including those struggling with habitability and people who want to improve their home's energy or water efficiency.
Basically, it's a program to help people stay in their homes, especially if those homes need major repairs or upgrades. But let's be clear about the fine print. This is a homeowner's program. It provides up to $50,000 in repair grant funding for households making between 80% and 120% of the area median income. Pennsylvanians deserve a budget with programs like this. We deserve better than the housing crisis we've normalized.
We all need to do the part to make sure our communities get those resources. The State House has already passed the budget, and we've been waiting on the Senate. Yet Majority Floor Leader Senator Joe Pittman keeps stalling, putting us in even more jeopardy.
We know that putting the pressure on to actually get this done is going to take all of us. So I urge you to join us in contacting Senator Pittman and putting the pressure on him to get this budget passed. No more vacations for the PA Senate. Let's get this done. You can contact him at 717-787-8724 or send him an email. We'll link his contact information in the show notes to make it nice and easy for you.
Exactly. So make a call on your lunch break, write a quick paragraph before bed, forward this episode to your group chat, And don't forget, there's always things happening locally. Check out your school board meetings, city council agendas, and town halls. All of them happen in your local library or municipal buildings or virtually. Showing up tells officials that you're paying attention.
Today, we're welcoming Kane, our summer comms fellow at PA Stands Up, onto the pod to talk about the fellowship and their own experience as a homeowner in Pennsylvania. Welcome to News You Can Use, Kane. Happy to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with PA Stands Up?
Hi, so I am currently a college student at York College of Pennsylvania. I live in Lancaster County, and you always mean to get a little bit more involved, but, busy being a student and everything. And so, signed up for all the email lists, and I saw the email about the fellowship, and I was like, oh, this would actually be a really nice opportunity. Um, so part of me was still saying, oh, you won't get that. I challenged that by applying. So here I am. I have a 2-year degree that's in communications. So I think that you said earlier that I'm the communications fellow at PA Stands Up. Um, and with any luck, I'll graduate with my 4-year degree in the fall. I don't think I'll need that much luck. So
That's awesome, Kane. Thank you for sharing. And as Hannah said, we know that you're involved with the fellowship program, but can you tell us more about that? What are you doing? What are you learning? What's the end goal of it?
yeah, so basically, that's a lot of trainings. We've had wonderful trainings. We've done canvassing, a lot of phone banking, which actually I didn't think I would enjoy as much as I do, but I really enjoy it. And we had events like the payback action in June, where we went to the Capitol in Harrisburg. But I would say it's been a lot of Zoom meetings, but it's been a lot of just learning about how grassroots organizing works and seeing all of the moving parts, especially as far as comms goes. So definitely I've made a lot of graphics for social media, made some videos. But yeah, it's been really enjoyable, and it's helped me learn more about not just how those messages are communicated, but how community is brought together through them.
I love that. And I'm lucky enough to coach Kane in the fellowship and get to see all of the trainings and all of the learnings, seeing you put them into practice has been really gorgeous and beautiful and inspiring to see. And today, as you know, we're talking about housing. And since we're talking about that, what does home mean to you?
I think that home means to me, it's you go a lot of places. Maybe you go to work, maybe you go to the grocery store, um, maybe you go on vacation or for a trip to your parents' house or whichever. Home isn't always your parents' house, but it is to a lot of people. And that's okay. But then, it's that, where do I feel comfortable? Where do I feel safe? At the end of the day, when I think about where maybe not the most comfortable mattress, although now it is, where do I lay my head down? Where do I feel safe? Where do I feel it's my base?
That's awesome. And as we discussed off the pod, just for people background story of how did Kane come to be on the pod with us, you were explaining to us that you're a millennial homeowner. Can you tell us a little bit about your process of finding a home and what made you settle on the one that you're currently in?
Yeah, so trying to think, it was 2017. I think that's about 8 years. Yeah, I'm not a math major, by the way. Um, so I was leaving my parents' home, and I was dating my current partner, who I'm still with. And the two of us first had been looking to rent a place, um, visited a lot of places, filled out a lot of rental applications. At the time, it would be important to mention before I say transition that I am trans. Um, and it was in the early days. So my birth name was on every document. Um, Even though I changed it, it was still on a lot of documents. You have to go through every single system to get the name put on all of those. Um, and that readily shows up in background checks, and they ask, have you ever used any other name? So coincidentally, we never heard back from almost any of those rental applications. And usually when we were being asked questions in person, I mean, I did not pass in the early days because pretty much everyone still called me ma'am to my face. Um, so that was difficult. I feel like that was a part of why we were not able to rent. Unfortunately, it's one of those kind of, oh, you never like really know that, but you know that. Um, and so because my partner is older than me and had an IRA, like we got to talking like, hey, maybe we could use one of these first time home buyer programs and put down something on a house. Um, so again, this is in 2017. Interest rates were a little lower. Um, Housing prices were still high, but if you're not really concerned with like moving into a fixer upper, you know, $89,000 house, not as big of a deal. The down payment wasn't horrible, and they were really looking to push it. It had been on the market for about a year. So they were like, oh, here are these two millennial kids coming along. Let's try to push this on them. They both got jobs. This will probably work out. No, but I'm very grateful that we did find our house. But basically, we found it on Zillow. And then we just kind of went out and saw the house in person. We looked at a couple other fixer-uppers in the same price range and said, no, we want the house that has less issues. Still has issues. Um, and they made that happen for us. We didn't have to actually put that much down. I think it was either between 1% to 3% because we did the first time home buyer thing. And it was like, 4% interest rate. I don't think they offer that right now. I would say it was a speedy process, but when we were going through it, it didn't feel like one. So.
That makes sense. And thank you for sharing about that experience. And I think it's a lot more common than folks think. And as you know, I'm a Gen Zer. So it was both helpful and saddening to hear about that experience. I'm glad that in the end you guys got a house. Yay. That feels like home to you now. What kind of impact did that experience have on you from trying to rent, not being able to, having to go with the fixer upper that you have now?
I don't know if I mentioned, but I was 24 during that time when that happened. Um, and to go through that experience first with not being able to like access the rentals, part of it was extremely disheartening because I was like, what are we going to do? Like, for a place to go. And another part of it was, okay, but that rental also was twice the amount or more that we would pay in mortgage payments. And some of it was really odd because I'd never rented before. Certain places were like, oh yeah, you would have to put down extra because you've never rented, because you don't have any rental history. So that felt really disempowering. I would say, I don't know if it felt empowering being able to buy the house. It felt like we were very lucky because we came along at the right place at the right time. That being said, it didn't quite hit me at first how much it would cost to like fix these individual things. Because, and I don't remember what the terms were, but the first thing that needed fixed was the roof. The roof was bad. They did a lot of random DIY jobs. Whoever lived here before, they had like stapled extra layers of roof shingles on top of one another, and they were soft in some places. I don't know roofs, but I can tell you that's not good. And anyway, because, well, my mom was saying, hey, ask them for money to like fix the roof at the table. I can't say looking back that I remember like how that worked, but they really wanted to move the house. So like we were able to access the money just to fix the roof. And then once you start settling in, I think we got the locks changed the first week that we were here. And whoever came to change the locks said, oh yeah, this door has been kicked in at some point. You can see the door jamb is shattered. And nobody wants to come out to fix a door jamb. But like putting in a new frame and a whole new door is like over $1,000. So for at least about a year, we just kept the front door locked and entered the back. And then little things here and there that, wouldn't cost like little amounts because it's an older home and like not everything is like cut to standard size. So, oh yeah, you might replace a pipe, but does it fit with the pipe that's under it? Oh, then you might have to replace that. You might have to replace that and also something else. So I think one of the most difficult ones was years later, like 2023, we were supposed to have a free electrical inspection. And they came out and basically said, yeah, you should probably get out. The whole thing had to be replaced to the tune of like a $9,000 loan that we're still paying on. At least we know that it's safe now, but we had been sleeping over a massive fire hazard for years. And the exact same year, the borough came out and told us, for something else free, they're replacing the meter. They told us that the pipe servicing water to our house was made of lead. So for both of these instances, what was difficult? I mean, besides the fact that we didn't want the house to burn down and what was difficult was that these were both reported to the borough and we had to have it fixed by a certain day. So that was taken care of, but it's just been issues like that here and there. Every little thing adds up, and you still end up with issues that you're like, I'm going to ignore that until I can figure out what to do about it. So because everything is just such a cost juggle.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Kane. That's like the reality for a lot of people living in different places, and thank you for sharing your story, because I know there sometimes folks are like, I don't want to explain all the things going on in my home, but I think all of us has at least one or two things in our house that we're like, I'm not going to look at that until I'm actually able to pay for it and do things. I want to go back a little bit. When you were first looking for housing, or like when you first realized that your house needed repairs, were there any protections or resources available to you at the time? Do you recall any type of resources that your borough might have been able to, like, hey, apply for this and this can help you fund some of the resources that you need to do for your house? Or like, was there anything like that?
As far as I was aware of, they were not offering, because we also had a difficult time finding there's different types of plumbing and they deal with different things. So we couldn't just call on a regular plumber. They had to excavate from the sidewalk to our house for this type of thing. And, they dug up a lot of weeds that we couldn't afford to pull out ourselves and that were really hard. So that was a unexpected added bonus. But it was just that deadline and like, hey, call us if you need anything. And when we couldn't get someone to do it for like a reasonable price, basically I called and they were like, oh yeah, we'll refer you to so-and-so who will do it. And I believe, if I'm correct, that person also worked for the borough, but in the end it was done. But we were not offered anything. Like, we were in the repair process. I mean, if those services existed, then nobody in any of those positions was telling us about them.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think contributes a lot to like the place that we're in now with housing, especially younger generations, when we're actually able to acquire a house. And in the same, sort of vein, what do you wish that lawmakers, housing authorities, landlords, all of them understood about working people's housing needs and what they can actually do to change things?
I think one of the things that's important, because, like I said before, I've had to get like fixes done to my house, like on a dime as far as time goes, that debt over our heads and like already having debt over our heads makes it extremely hard. I think that I mentioned the other day to you, Hannah, that someone let me have a credit card when I was 19. And, a lot of people in my generation have a lot of the student loan debt burden. Um, and just like starting out life already with a lot of debt. And it's not even just student loans, because if you don't have student loans, um, chances are you might have credit card loans, auto loans, um, personal loans, like whichever. Those payday apps make it really easy to get a tiny loan. Um, but I wish that they understood that, like, we all have that debt hanging over our heads. And like that's part of the solution, I think, because if you also have a lot of debt and your debt to income ratio is high, you can't necessarily access even fixing things around your house on by getting a new loan, because they won't give it to you.
That's so real. Especially as someone who's also struggling with that right now. My crippling student debt is about to kick back in, and I'm already like, how am I going to pay for all this craziness? Um, so thank you for sharing that, Kane. I want to go back a little bit because you alluded to this in when you were talking about like applying for the process of looking for a home. Um, I'm wondering, how do you think that race, gender, or disability or income level intersects with housing discrimination in the community in general? You spoke about the discrimination that you face, and I'm wondering, how do you feel the other folks? Do you think this is a prevalent thing, or do you think this is something that only happened to you?
No, I definitely don't think that it's something that only happens to me. I mean, I hear about a lot of different people, uh, not even just in the state of Pennsylvania, but like in the Lancaster, York, Dauphin areas, who have had difficult times, like getting rentals, um, whether it was that, they were a part of the LGBTQ community. Uh, if they were disabled, definitely see that like, oh, we can't necessarily make accommodations for this property. That's a huge one. Um, you know, People of color, our BIPOC neighbors, like have a hard time as well. I've known people who, I mean, just like a similar thing that I said earlier, you don't always know 100% like why your rental application was turned down, but you know, I think that it's really big, and I think like having those protections is important, but it goes a lot further than that, because they can also say for a lot of different reasons that like you don't qualify. I think when the one place said, "Hey, I would have to pay much more because I hadn't had a rental before," that was a little bit of a deterrent on purpose. So I think that like we need to be looking out for those types of things too, like those really thinly veiled like ways to try to prevent marginalized people from getting into rentals.
Definitely, like those predatory practices, because I'm thinking, like, I don't think I've ever experienced that where they're like, no, you actually have to pay more because you haven't rented before. It was, like you said, very thinly veiled. And we know that in Pennsylvania, legally speaking, there really aren't many protections for queer people, even though there might be norms and recommendations and things like that. There aren't a lot of actual laws in PA. What kind of changes do you think our state government, our local governments need to make to protect queer folks in terms of housing?
I think that one of the solutions might be a broad anti-discrimination clause, like, across the board, saying you can't discriminate against queer folk for housing in the state of Pennsylvania. And I mean, I suppose some of the things that I could point to that I felt were barriers to me, like, oh, I had to put down previous names I've used. I know that there's other legal ramifications with that, and I suppose reasons why they asked that, but for trans people specifically, it seems like that's a big one that outs us. Like when we're looking for housing, and not just housing, but employment and all other types of things. So, and then we're kind of forced to choose, like, what would be the ramifications of if I don't put this down?
Thank you for sharing that, Kane. I definitely think that's something that our folks are looking at, especially up in NEPA. I know they're trying to get together. I think it's a citywide in Scranton and then countywide up in Luzerne, but don't double quote me on that. I'll have Holly or someone come on and speak about that. Um, so thank you for that, Kane. I have another question for you. What kind of legislation would help folks in our community stay in their homes safely?
So I'll give a shameless plug for like the Home Preservation Act, um, because I know that that's building off of like the Home Repairs Act from before, which was giving people money not as a loan, but like as a grant to fix up like things in their houses that are like detrimental to like health and safety and like preservation of the house. So the Home Preservation Act would allow that to like, allow those services to continue, because while a lot of homeowners were helped with that, unfortunately a lot more still reside on wait lists. So I think that that would be a fantastic thing if that were to pass.
Definitely hard agree. And we know like that there's bipartisan work on it, and the PA Home Preservation Program could help keep a lot of folks in their homes. Kane, in your opinion, how can neighbors support others who are navigating housing insecurity?
I think that one of the top things that people can do to help support others is like, not only speak out in favor of things like these just because it doesn't affect you. Like, I mean, if you're in your dream house, you got the white picket fence and everything, if it doesn't affect you, you can still speak out for folks like who are disadvantaged. And you can like talk to your neighbors directly, like people that who are like struggling with these things, and like finding out from them like what the issues are that they're experiencing like personally, and finding how you can get involved. Like maybe it's making a call to support a specific piece of legislation, maybe it's spreading awareness, like not even just about like the Home Preservation Act, but you were saying earlier, Edwin, with the anti-discrimination clause that they are working on, like up in the Scranton area, like spreading awareness of that, like helping to spread that further, and just having conversations with people, like speaking out against um, unfair housing practices. And one of the bigger things is making sure we know about these services that are there to help people with housing, that we're speaking out about them. If we're having a conversation, if you think that someone that you're speaking to might benefit from knowing this, hey, whole home repairs, or, anti discrimination clause, or maybe it's even like, hey, I know so and so who has a similar identity to yours, and they actually feel really affirmed where they're living. So maybe I can connect the two of you if that's all right, just for example. Um, and even just people who are trying to get into housing, home buying, making them aware of first time home buyer programs. Because I think that, yeah, even when we went through that, like a lot of people who we were talking about that with were like, oh, I didn't know that existed. I thought that you still had to put like 20 to 50% down on a house. So those are very helpful. And sometimes they'll even have the caveat that you attend a workshop to like, learn more about housing and maintaining housing and everything, to access those funds. So yeah, I think just like telling people, like being vocal, even if you're just reposting something on social media, you never know who sees it, who might have needed it at that moment.
I think that's so powerful, Kane, because it's just like you were saying before, just because someone has their like, picket fence and like everything seems perfect, it doesn't mean that you get to count yourself out of the fight. This is all of our continuous fight. We're all in community together, and it's going to take all of us basically advocating and yelling at our lawmakers to make change. So I'm like, that's such a powerful thing. Um, Sliding into our next question, talking about lawmakers and stuff. Kane, if you could say something directly to our elected officials about housing justice, what would it be?
I would say that it is hard to get into a rental, get into a home, and maintain both of those when you already start your life out with so much debt hanging over your head. And it's not just student loan debt, even though that's a huge problem in my generation. It's just like the availability of having that debt over your head and not being able to access like affordable payments for it or debt relief of any kind. Um, I think it's just a huge problem, and it does go back for me to like, a lot of those issues with debt, because that can be very preventative to whatever you want to do. I mean, a lot of landlords run credit scores nowadays, and the medical debt is another problem. I know that, to be fair, I know when I got my house, they said, oh, yeah, we don't look at that. Not every place is like that, I'm sure. But as we know, those provisions for medical debt were repealed by the current administration. So a lot of it does just go back to debt and like how much it could be the difference between like being in a safer house or being able to afford to make your house safer or not, or like being able to get into the rental or not.
Thank you for sharing that, Kane. Like sharing your story in general, but also your really valuable thoughts on housing. Our generations have so much debt, and we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, like the buying power of our grandparents, in the 70s versus us today, and how abysmal it is. And every single place that I applied to rent here in Philly, they ran my credit score. So it's nearly impossible to avoid. But as you know, we can will build power at the local and state levels. And of course, that's why you're doing this fellowship. So, besides working with us in the comms department here, what has been your favorite part of the fellowship program? I know you only have a week left, so you've had a lot so far.
Oh, well, that was going to be my answer, was working with all of you in the comms department there. um I think, and it might sound really corny, but I'm especially like talking about like in-person actions that I've been to, just like really seeing what happens when people come together, like not just like hearing about it as like what feels like this abstract concept that like you're not a part of, but seeing it and like being a part of it, um, I think has been like really life-changing for me this summer. So I think that's my favorite part.
Okay, now you about to have me up here tearing up and snotting all over the pod. Good lord. But that's okay. I'm leaning into the feelings. It's totally fine. Um, but thank you, Kane. That's all the questions we have for you. Actually, nope. We have one more question because I always want to end this on a high note. So I'm curious, Kane. What's giving you hope and what's keeping you sane lately?
Not to go back to the last one, wanted to give some more variety, but it's true, just like being involved with these movements, through PA Stands Up, not to say Lancaster Stands Up, because I live in Lancaster County, um, and just seeing what people can do, what people are motivated to do when they come together. I think that is a major part of what is giving me hope, because I wouldn't feel hope if I felt like I was totally alone. And I think that that's true for a lot of people.
I definitely think that's true because, same, my community gives me hope. And when I'm isolating myself and I'm just like, okay, everything's like horrible and I'm doom spiraling, it's usually my friends that come over and are like, hey, let's go walk by the river and like, cuddle a dog in the park somewhere. And I'm like, oh, everything's not the worst. Or let's go, sign some postcards and send them to people in power and be like, hey, we need you to do this thing. So totally, totally feel that. Um, Hannah, what's giving you hope? Because I just answered and I was like, let's move over to you as well.
Well, I kind of feel like I'm riffing off Kane a little bit here, but honestly, the fellowship program has been like really, really impactful for me to um, see like my friend Rob, who first hired me as an intern years ago and got me involved in this work, now running this program, and then me getting to coach a fellow who's as awesome as Kane, and just getting to see their growth throughout the summer and all the amazing things that they have done and will continue to to do reminds me how important this work is. And I love getting to be like, this is a job. You can be an organizer as a job. You can do this all the time. And even if you're not, like, seeing how many new volunteers we've gotten over the summer and, building with so many new people. Yeah, I'm feeling very hopeful right now, despite everything. And it's really working with all of you that gives me that hope.
Oh, I love that. And I'm like, yeah, all of you guys give me hope. And also, like, I want to give Kane a special shout out for like the viral TikTok that he created this year. Like, if you don't follow us on TikTok, you probably don't know what we're talking about. But Kane created an amazing TikTok that went viral this past like couple of weeks. So I want to give him his flowers and just like, yeah, thank you so much for being such an amazing part of our team. And like, I'm definitely going to miss you, man. Like, I know this isn't goodbye, but I'm just like, oh my god, like this has been such an amazing experience, and thank you for being fucking amazing.
Yeah, no, it's been an amazing summer. Like when I look back at my last few summers, being a full time student, like summer's the time in between the semester, unless you decide to go, and I'm not going to do that to myself right now in life. It's just like, what do I do over summer? I'm in the house. I find things to do in the house. Well, this time, I felt like I was able to do something a lot bigger.
I love that so much, Kane. And you definitely did something way bigger. Like, again, I would like to even say that you shaped our plans for the remainder of the year and into 2026. Thank you for being an amazing part of our team.
Yeah, by calling out Josh on TikTok.
Exactly. Joshua, we're watching you. We have some questions. Awesome. Well, that's the end of our podcast. Thank you for being with us today, friend. And we'll end it here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you again for Kane for joining us. That's it for today's news you can use. We'll be watching the budget, the votes, and the billionaires trying to buy our democracy. But mostly, we'll be watching how it affects us. If you enjoy the show, please follow us and share with your friends and your enemies. And be sure to come back next month to hear about all things Pennsylvania, people, power, and politics. Until then, I'm your host, Edwin, and don't forget, Pennsylvania is for all of us. We'll see you in the streets.
This episode of News You Can Use was produced by PA Stands Up member Liz Levins, Director of Narrative Strategy Edwin Stubbs, and Digital Organizer Hannah Henrichon. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, please email us at comms@pastandsup.org.